Good? Okay. All right. Good, okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the HR Committee meeting for Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. I'll now call the meeting to order. Is there any declarations of conflict of interest? Hearing none. Can I get an approval of the agenda? Councillor Ramsley, Councillor McCabe.
Just under new business? Just
we're
want to
just-
give,
yeah, we're
you
not
want,
quite
you
there
want me
under new
to
business.
add it now or wait till we get to new business?
Yeah, we'd probably wait till we get to new business, yeah.
Okay.
Can I get an adoption of the minutes from the HR draft minutes from August 6th of 2024? Yes. Councillor Ramsey, Councillor McCabe, any business arising from those minutes? Hearing none? Okay, and for today's meeting, we have a couple of discussion reports. Our first one is the remuneration bylaw Schedule A, benefits and severance. Before we get started on that, to our manager, Emily, we put that forward just in regard to that section that we are trying to, I guess I'd like to get some clarity on some areas of what we can and can't have in there, and then determine whether or not we're going to put something forward as an amendment to the amendment that was there. So I'll leave it up to you. I know you have some explanation in here if you want to take that on, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we received a request to review the rationale for the change in the contribution from personal RSP and TFSA to contributing to the city's RSP group plan. Just a bit of definition, the remuneration bylaw Schedule A, benefits and severance states that members of council will be enrolled in the City of Charlottetown's group registered retirement savings plan and will receive a contribution valued at 12.25% of their regular earnings. Members of council who are not eligible to contribute to an RSP as defined by CRA will be enrolled in the City of Charlottetown's group tax-free savings account and will receive a contribution valued at 12.25% of their regular earnings. Contributions will not be made to personal RSPs or TFSAs. Section 82(2)(b)(1) of the MGA states the council may establish or provide for 1, pensions, and 2, severance payments. The CRA considers a pension to exist where contributions are 1, made to the plan by or on behalf of an employer or former employer of an employee, 2, made in consideration for the employee's employment services, and 3, used to provide an annuity or other periodic payment on or after the employee's retirement from the organization. So as the above noted section of the MGA notes, consideration for pension, and whereas pension is defined by CRA as explained above, it is recommended that the current version of the remuneration bylaw is maintained. As a note, clear language surrounding the definition of a pension should be added to the remuneration bylaw upon the next review from the Remuneration and Allowances Commission.
Thank you. So when I read through that, I guess the crux of what we're trying to get to here is the option of having those contributions being made either to a city plan or a personal plan. So the language in section 82.2(b)(1) is where I'm confused as to, it defines that it has to be with a city plan or a plan of the employer, I guess, in this case, versus the contribution going as an option to go either there or there. So I suspect in some cases, some may say, well, I don't care what plan it's in, if it's in the city plan, or some would say, well, I prefer it to be in my own, and that's what the request is. So are you suggesting or saying that section 82(2)(b)(1) does not allow for it to go into a personal RSP or TSFA?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think what we're trying to articulate is a tax-free savings account is not considered as a pension vehicle as defined in here and as by the CRA. It's to provide an annuity or other periodic payment on or after an employee's retirement. Where a tax-free savings account, you have access to that right away. So we're saying we're sticking with the RRSP is the language we would like to stick with. The tax-free savings account could be triggered when someone is not eligible to contribute to that RSP as defined by the CRA, that is something the city is willing to discuss and keep in that bylaw. But in terms of just contributing to a tax-free savings account or RSP, that's not something the city is looking to do at this time.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Councillor Ramsey.
Thanks for that, Emily, and you and I discussed this off the record a little bit, because I'm getting to that age, unfortunately, but anyway. Is there an age thing where you have an option? Is it 72 or 70, or could you clarify that for me, please?
It's by the end of your 71st year, you have to start, or you are no longer able to contribute to an RSP when you reach that age, as per CRA.
So just before you hit 72, then?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So since the last change, so is all then, all the contributions right now are going into a city plan RRSP
Correct, yeah.
at this point in time?
At this point in time, we've made those adjustments, and folks who were contributing to the personal accounts were notified, and I think that's kind of what triggered this conversation.
Yep. Well, I know there's a desire by many to continue with that. So, I mean, I don't know if, I feel like there's recommendations, but there's also what people are looking for. So do we want to put it in there and then send it back to council to see what council wants to do? Or is there language here that supports it can't be done that way? I guess that's where I feel like we're not at the point of it can't be done. It's more of a desire or a recommendation.
Well, so, Mr. Chair, I do believe there is language in there that states it can't be done. As per 82(2)(b)(1) of the MGA, it states council may establish or provide pension or severance payments. A pension is not defined by CRA as a tax-free savings account. It's defined as an annuity or periodic payment on an employee's retirement or after.
Councilor McKay?
And yeah, I can see where that is, but it could still be, from what I heard from many council, is that they would still prefer to have their own RSP location for what's coming at them, rather than to go into the city plan. I think there was many that
That's a desire
indicated.
as well. I mean,
Huh?
that's a desire, like that's one.
That's what I
option of a
mean,
desire.
yeah, like that I think was an option, regardless of if they can have an RSP or a TSFA, would be that they were in control of their own area of where that money went.
And if that was the recommendation that came from the committee into council to move those to personal RRSPs, I think that's a conversation we could have. I think it's more the tax-free savings account piece that isn't considered to be a pension,
Okay.
where the issue lies.
And I think that's fine. We just need to get that, I mean, if that's the clarity and that's what it is, then, we're not here to debate CRA rules or, that's not, it was just get the clarity around that. So, the language could be written that as it stands, or you can contribute to your own personal RSP, period. So then some that want that option would have that option and others would just continue as is. I did think at one point, because it does say, so the only way you'd be enrolled in the city's group tax-free savings account is if you were in that situation where you didn't have room in your RSP. Is that how it works, or?
No, Mr. Chair, it would.
Or you're not eligible
Would
to
only be if you're not eligible.
so
It's up
it's
to the member to determine if they have the space and ensure they do, or they would be the ones with the tax implications.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when it says you're not eligible to contribute to the RSP, that's the age thing that we're talking about.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, so what does
Mr.
council?
Chair,
Yep.
I'm just getting a little confused by what you're saying there, because I thought there was some clarity. We have Dan, our Director of Finance, so I think he knows the tax rules. Okay, so for the TCAF, tax savings free account, right? TSFA? TFSA, okay. Can we, with the present setup, can we make contributions to the TFSA? Dan or Emily?
Mr. Chair, I'll respond to that one. No, as the language states right now,
Right.
no, you're not eligible. And as per the MGA, there's provisions for a pension or a severance. The CRA defines a pension as an annuity paid to an employee upon or after retirement.
Right.
A tax-free savings account is something folks can access at any time.
Right.
It's not considered a pension.
I think some councillors want to have that freedom to contribute to the TFSA. So let's just make that happen. We have to amend the remuneration bylaw, make the change, and let them invest in their own pension plan, like I have my own pension plan, go through my own pension advisor who is with Scotiabank. I think that's the general feel here.
I don't think we can, based on, we'd have to change the whole, it wouldn't be considered a retirement savings plan if we do that, because that would have to be it for people like myself, Councillor Matart, we'd have to be into a registered savings plan, because that's what the intent of this was. We'd have to change the wording of that too. You wouldn't just get to choose TSFA or RSP based on this wording, but what my thing is I know people would prefer, rather than it being in the group plan with the whole city, that if I deal with Alan Morris at RBC, then I want to contribute my funds to my own funds, that I should be able to do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Let's just accommodate what some of the members of council are asking, and if they can contribute to the TFSA or they can't, they can put it back in their own pension plan. Again, it was missed. Someone should have looked at this amendment before we passed the amendment. Here we are trying to undo an amendment that we made not several months ago.
I think it would be important to point out highlights too, moving forward, when all this information's coming at us, when there's big changes like that are going to be made. So it's not that I don't think people didn't pick it up, you'd read it and maybe not
quite
process
understand
that was a difference from what existed previous. Like I missed it myself.
I didn't see it as a big change. It didn't, it doesn't really, either way we go, it doesn't matter to me. I have investments, I have a pension plan through the provincial government, and I have other sources of funding that I put aside. So there was no bells and whistles coming off that sounded to me. And that's why I think if the council wants to change it, let's change it.
And Mr. Chair, to your worship, that is what I just stated. We're open to changing to have the ability to contribute to your personal RSPs. It's the tax-free savings account that isn't included in this piece, as it's not considered to be a pension plan. If we allow council members to contribute to a tax-free savings account, it's a 12.25% bonus, essentially, that we're issuing to council because they have access to it right away.
So, Dan, or again, through the chair, is that breaking the rules? Is that breaking the rules? That's, we want to stay within the rules.
Yeah, I think what Emily's saying, and I don't disagree, if you're contributing, or the city is contributing to a TFSA, it's essentially additional compensation, additional salary. It's not a pension benefit. So it would be fully taxed when it's received. So it really isn't consistent with the purpose of the provision for retiring.
So I think, just to kind of wrap this up, I mean, I guess if it doesn't, that's fine if we move forward. I guess I wouldn't want to see it come back and be challenged that, in fact, the TFSA would be considered a pathway of a pension, like a pension savings, because some perceive that is the case. So if we could get clarity on that, like in certainty, I mean, I know you're reading it somewhere, I don't know where you're getting that from, but if we can get clarity that that is not consistent with the MGA as a definition of a pension contribution pathway or channel mechanism, then we can take that off the table, and then the options are, but it's interesting because it's kind of contradictory in some states, because the other statement says, if you're not eligible to contribute to an RSP as determined by CRA, then you can be enrolled in the tax-free savings account. So, it's kind of contradictory to say, you're saying one way we can't do it completely, but if you're not in there, then you can do it that way. So the statement should just take TFSA out altogether.
And Mr. Chair, is there we're all in, or is there certain councillors allowed to go this different route? I guess is my question. Like, if we're going by this, it looks like we sort of stick by this with the 10 councillors and mayor. But if we're going to amend a lot of things, well, let's say 3 don't want to be in this. So then there's 7 and 3. You know, I'm just trying to figure, either we're all in or we're not all in. That's right.
I think what we could do, from what I'm hearing today, is there could be an option. So for me, I'm okay with staying in the city account, whatever, too. But for someone that wants it in their own, there should be an or, your own RSP contribution. And that way, we bring that to council. We're not playing around with TSFA versus RSP unless you're in that category. But if your really preference is to have your own RSP stay together, then they should have that option.
Yeah, that was my question.
And then otherwise, they stay in the group one and reminded how they get that out when they're all done.
But I would like to get, just clarity, for sure, because I think it may be challenged in whether or not a TFSA is considered a pension savings mechanism. So I know you've stated it. I know you probably got it somewhere, but if we can,
Yep, Mr. Chair, I did pull that definition off the CRA website, and it's not considered a pension. Yes, it can be used, one of the, ways it can be used to save for retirement, but the fact that you have access to it immediately, it's not considered a pension vehicle.
Yep, okay.
And as per the MGA, that's what it states council can make
and we may
recommendations
have to
on.
go back to the clause that says if you're not eligible then to contribute to an RSP, then you can go to the city's tax-free savings. That's very contradictory to what we're saying here. So,
So there are two issues that might be helpful. So in terms of an investment vehicle, the TFSA, in terms of what the city is giving to the councillors, is really not much different than a gift card for $2,000. It's free money that you can go and spend the way you want. So it's really, it's payment for serving in office. The reason I think that the TFSA was introduced was because we had members of council who had aged out in terms of the ability to contribute to a group RSP, and so that they weren't unfairly treated in terms of the compensation overall as a package that they received from the city, that this was a mechanism to allow them to be compensated even though that contribution would be taxed as other employment income. So it really is just, it's what you do with the money when you get it. The TFSA, you could take it out tomorrow and buy a gift card or buy a new wheels for your car.
okay,
Yeah.
so what we'll do is we'll leave it at that. We'll do a suggested change to the or for the personal RSP. And based on that, we'll take any language, or we can leave the TFSA language in based on the explanation of aging out and having an appropriate place to still have your contributions if you're beyond that. So that's fair. I mean, that would be the only mechanism around that particular situation. Okay, thank you for that, Emily. We're going to move on to the next report, which is the minimum wage increase report. I'll leave that up to Emily to report on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On October 1st, 2024, there's a legislated minimum wage increase. The City of Charlottetown is looking to implement that wage increase effective September 29th, 2024. This way, it will be at the beginning of a pay period, so it'll be less administratively taxing on the payroll department. I did bring a total cost to the city, as I thought that might be something you would be looking for, and it will be a total cost to the city of $222.
Moved. I'll move that.
I'll second that.
Yeah, let's move that.
It'll be a total cost to the city for what, sorry? 200 and,
To implement the change
oh, okay.
on September 29th versus October 1st.
So we moved by Councillor Ramsey, second by Councillor McCabe, so we'll move that forward to council. Yep, thank you. All right. The next order of business is the DEI Advisory Board, August 20th, 2024. Do you have an update on that, Emily?
We just included the minutes from the October 20th meeting for the committee's review. If there are any questions on the minutes, please let me know. I'll do my best to answer.
Yeah, I do.
So that's the, just for the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Advisory Committees for DEI, for those listening.
I have a question on these advisory, because I know they come from the mayor's advisory boards or whatever, and they fall to certain departments, but is there staff that attend these meetings?
to Councillor McCabe through the chair. On this committee, there is not. They have a minute taker. Some advisory committees, staff do attend. This one, I will attend if it's requested, if they have specific questions or are requiring me to come present. I have done that on a number of occasions with the committee. But typically, no, they don't have a staff member that sits on it.
I think we need to find some sort of, Your Worship, some sort of a consistency across the boards around how this works, because they're very different and they're falling to different departments and where they fit and how they fit, and even their terms of reference. I know we've approved them, but, I think we need to come back and look at how do we have consistency for these advisory board meetings. Just putting that out.
In terms of staff?
In terms of everything, their functionality,
Accountability.
what we're able to do with the work that they're doing. I know that they're coming in and doing good work or trying to do good work, but direction and what the purpose is, and staff present, council present. I tend to attend the civic board for persons with disability meetings, but that's one more meeting. So what's the functionality of these advisory boards? I think we need to have a bigger discussion.
Is this a new board? Or how long has this board been going on?
It was announced right after the election, when we were sworn in.
This is the first minutes that I ever received.
No? This is
Oh,
the first
yes.
minutes?
Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yes, this would be the first copy of the minutes from this committee you had received. We were struggling to get minutes consistently from this committee. We've since been able to move forward and are now receiving those minutes. That's also why this is the first time the terms of reference has been coming forward for review.
Yes, and just on that, sorry, Your Worship, and just on that, it's just, when I was reading it there yesterday and last night, said that, they're going to be talking to the senator about certain Percy Down, about his comments and all that. Is like, with the code of conduct, or not the code of conduct, whatever it is anyway, is that their role? Like, that they phone, like the senator, because he made the wrongly comments, or something along that line? It just, are they outside of their realm there, Your Worship? I don't know. I'm just going to ask that question.
I think I want to just follow up with what Councillor McCabe said. There's no consistency I know the Senior Engagement Advisory Committee has has a staff person that is quite involved. The Youth Engagement Advisory has DL involved. I know with the committee regarding the affordable housing, Jason Doucette attends. Like, again, if we're talking about minute taking and all those functions that are in the past, with the active transportation the active transportation task force, those minutes were taken by the group members and then forwarded to a staff person that would formulate them into a package that would be submitted with council's monthly package. So this is the first time we've had a set of minutes. No one advised them prior to that they have to submit minutes, or would sit in to say, look, we're going to have to find a format?
I think this is, I don't know if I'd even direct that question to staff, because it's a mayor and council advisory committee board. I think we need to figure out how that's going to work, and to expect that we, to staff to have to be there, to be present in these committees. Like, I'll take Civic Board, for example, a lot of concerns and issues they have, it's across the whole city. It's not just parks, it's not just public works issues that they deal with. So to expect a staff from public works to be there to coordinate that, I don't think that's necessarily reasonable. They have lots working, I'm sure the admin staff for HR in different places are busy trying to do that. So to add that extra duty on, is that what the role is? I think we need to have a bigger discussion.
That's been the consistency with the Seniors Engagement Advisory Committee. That's been the consistency with the Youth Engagement Advisory Committee. That again, those are just two that I can name. The Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, we've always had staff people from planning. So as in terms of an extra task, other advisory committees that have been around for a number of councils have seemed to work out the formula. So
Yeah, I just think it's worth a discussion with the full council around the boards, and You know, which ones are, the senior, for example, I do see the work that the senior advisory group is doing. They're doing some really great work, so it's a really functional group, but it's just that bigger look. We have a lot of these advisory boards, and I just think we have to look at,
But they have a point
role.
person from the city that is coordinated between the city and the advisory board.
They have-
They have a staff person that is coordinating their efforts, which is very important. And we've always seen that as part of the Senior Engagement Advisory Committee. I think that's what I wanted to see with the EDI, is that this is a very important issue for the city of Charlottetown, where we have to look at equality, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And, you know, again, if we're just getting these minutes for the first time in 2 years, then someone, you know, someone slipped somewhere along the way. Like, obviously, we didn't ask for them before.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead. Emma.
Your worship, I've spoken to you offline about this and the challenges we've had with this committee, and some of the members on the committee stating they are volunteer and it's taking longer than they expected to get minutes ready for us. Jennifer Carter, our EA, has been, on top of the committee and following up on numerous occasions. So I don't think it's fair to say we haven't had that staff liaison as we have had that. The committee also wasn't enacted 2 full years ago. It was about this time last year when we actually had our first meeting as a committee. And we've been working closely with the committee to ensure that we have consistency. But yes, unfortunately, this is the first set of minutes that's made its way to committee at this time.
So I'd just like to jump in for a sec. So I think, as opposed to, looking at what's not working well here, we need to figure out how can this committee support the DEI advisory board. So I think what I'd like to see is if you want to come back with some suggestions on how we can help support it, or council and mayor, I don't know, like these, as Councilor McKay brought up, all these different committees and who should be involved and how we're involved. But if they need support, then we need to figure out a way to do that. If we're going to have these, we can't just have them and then expect that people run them themselves and, and they don't, they need somebody to guide and support them. So that's an area.
With the diversity, yeah, and like,
maybe
you still never answered my question is, are they staying within the confines of what they're supposed to do? Like they're saying that city staff should be all trained. Diversity training. Like, in me as an elected official or me as a resident, is that my role to say that the city corporation should be doing this or should be doing that? Or I don't know, or are they just comments? That's the
committee-
questions I'm asking.
Well, the committee is established to, make recommendations back to this committee. And if one of their recommendations or suggestions is that, city staff or whatever do that type of training, then we determine whether or not that's something that is needed. It's just a recommendation they're doing. That's a very standard practice now in most organizations across the world. So, yeah, I would think that would be in line with what they're working on.
Yeah, and as you just said at the closing here, Mr. Chair, is just, as I say, like, there's the odd question you have going through your mind because it's the first time we had the minutes. So, when you read through them, you're saying, oh, they said this, or they're going to phone this person, or they're going to do this and do that. So that's the only thing that I'm trying to wrap my head around. And they're doing a good job, so I just was wondering how much power they do have.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's anything to do with that. It's just simply a body of people who are coming together and trying to, advance the areas of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and make recommendations to the city of Charlottetown and benefit the residents and ourselves, so. Okay, so maybe what we can do is, if you want to go back, there's a lot of comments around this today. If you feel there's some things that maybe you could bring back to committee, and just if there's some suggestions, we'll certainly help in that area the best that we can. Try to do whatever we can to support the committee.
Mr. Chair, just again, if we're looking at equity, diversity, inclusion, I think there has to be an equitable service for all the advisory committees. I keep preaching about Senior Engagement Advisory Committee.
Okay,
The
well then,
Youth Engagement Advisory Committee, the I already know the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee in the last term, they didn't do a lot of reporting. We had to push and push them. And yes, Emily and I have had those discussions, but it's not up to me to go to Rose Ellen and say, Rose, you have to put minutes in. You need people, you need some accountability here. There's a staff, as soon as we put a board, an advisory board or an advisory task force in place, then there's a bureaucratic responsibility. But I do want to just suggest, Mr. Chair, that one area that we would like I would like this EDI to look at is that ASDA is the Atlantic Student Development Agency, and they've changed their name to the WorkSource Alliance, and they would like to make a presentation to the EDI about, the whole issue of race relations, not just for the city, but the whole community. And I think that we can reach out to Daniel Ohigbo, who is the co-founder and director of this organization. And I'll text it to Emily just to have that person as someone that we can bring in and maybe come into council and speak about the whole issue of race in our community. Thank you.
great, thank you. Okay, does anybody have any introduction of new business?
Just on the new business, I know in the past, I just want to give a call out or a notice on a motion. In the past, we just looked at our full-time, part-time, we used to get updates. Just wanted to get an update at our next meeting, if we can. I'd just like to track, like, compared to previous year or previous years. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. We did have that flag for next meeting. I think at a previous meeting, we had said we'd provide an update quarterly, so that is flagged for next one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Okay, is there any other introduction of business? If not, request for adjournment? No. No?
I'm good.
Would you like to adjourn?
Oh, yes.
Yes, okay, Councillor Ramsey and Councillor McCabe. Thank you very much, everybody.